Imagine yourself transported back to the 17th century. You're standing within the hallowed halls of the Palace of Versailles. Sunlight streaming through tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Around you are tapestries depicting bucolic scenes of idealized rural life. Can you almost smell the fresh linen and flowers? Well, hold on, because what you're imagining is far from the reality. In this episode, we'll unveil a side of Versailles rarely seen. We'll explore the daily lives of noblewomen, focusing on their daily hygiene routine. They would use damp cloths to wipe themselves, which were moistened with alcohol or vinegar. While not a substitute for a proper bath, this practice allowed them to maintain a semblance of cleanliness. However, this ritual was not without its drawback. Alcohol and vinegar, while helping to remove dirt and sweat, were hardly pleasant to use, especially in the hot Versailles summers. What would they have done, or rather not done, when it came to cleaning themselves? Men bathed first, and then the women would enter the now dirty water. During the 17th century, elaborate and towering hairstyles were not only a sign of wealth and refinement, but also served as a canvas for showcasing the latest trends and techniques, added to the unsanitary conditions. The etiquette of the time required that women cover their nakedness with a cloth while sharing these baths. The regular use of animal fats as a styling aid led to an infestation of lice. These tiny insects, known for their blood-sucking habits, thrived in the warm, greasy environment of these elaborate wigs. They were not merely an accessory, but a declaration of one's position. The women here were not just battling insects. They were fighting to uphold a system that elevated the privileged few at the expense of their comfort. The Sun King's palace was designed to impress, with its vast halls and manicured gardens, serving as a backdrop to the glittering social scene. However, behind this facade of magnificence lay a darker truth. The higher the status, the more elaborate the wig could be, and thus the greater the prominence it afforded its wearer. In this context, the choice to wear a wig, particularly one laden with animal fats, was a calculated one. Raw sewage often found its way into the kitchens, contaminating the very source of sustenance for the nobility. Imagine the horror of preparing a feast amidst the stench of human waste and the uncertainty of whether the ingredients were safe for consumption. However, the true intention behind this practice was to prevent any scandal or impropriety, reflecting a deep-rooted distrust and a rigid moral code. It was a statement that said, "I have the means and the leisure to indulge in such luxuries," thereby signaling one's place in society. The pain of childbirth, often excruciating, was borne alone, adding another layer of trauma to an already violating experience. The combination of public exposure, lack of pain relief, and the constant scrutiny of onlookers transformed what should have been a pivotal moment of joy into a dreaded spectacle. It was a stark reminder to the expectant mothers that their bodies were not their own, that they were, in fact, the palace that was supposed to be a symbol of luxury and sophistication turned into a breeding ground for disease and despair. Vessels for the production of heirs, and that any deviation from the prescribed behavior was met with severe censure. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Your engagement fuels our passion for bringing history to life. And if you'd like to continue exploring, click here to dive into another captivating episode. Until next time, keep those brain cells functioning and stay curious. Their days were filled with rituals and routines aimed at upholding an image of grace, elegance, and refinement. However, beneath this polished veneer lay a stark reality of discomfort, disease, and indignity. It posed a serious health hazard. The contamination of food by sewage led to widespread food poisoning and a proliferation of parasitic infections, with tapeworms being particularly common among the courtiers. The fact that those preparing the food were often exposed to even worse conditions than the nobility underscores the pervasiveness of these issues. The spectacle of childbirth was not just a testament to the time's attitudes towards women's bodies. Perhaps that appearances were everything, and reality mattered little. Or maybe that even in the lap of luxury, life was far from perfect, but also to the lengths to which the nobility went to uphold their reputation and power. The interplay of health and neglect creates a stark reminder of how even the most lavish settings cannot shield against the hazards of a primitive environment. For the women of Versailles, dealing with lice was not just a matter of personal hygiene or comfort. It was a grim reality that permeated every level of society, reminding us of just how tenuous the line between affluence and adversity can be. It was a constant battle, a tug-of-war between maintaining their status symbol and enduring the irritating and sometimes debilitating effects of these parasites. But the element that brought these hairstyles to life, literally, was animal fats. For the royal women, it was a spectacle, an event that drew spectators from all corners of the court, turning a deeply personal moment into a public display. On one hand, their elaborate hairstyles were a vital signifier of their elevated status. On the other, the discomfort and potential health risks associated with these styles were very real. These greasy substances were used to style and hold the elaborate designs in place, ensuring that each curled loop and knot remained fixed throughout the long and tiring days of court life. Such practices not only fell short of our modern standards of hygiene, but also provide a glimpse into the social norms and attitudes towards the human body, During the 17th century, amidst the etiquette, the ceremonies, and the endless social niceties, there was little room for spontaneity or privacy. Instead, chamber pots were used, which were then emptied out of windows. This not only contributed to the filthy state of the corridors, but also created an unpleasant surprise for those walking below. The palace was as much a breeding ground for disease and discomfort as it was for royalty and pageantry. Waste would often accumulate on the ground floor, creating an environment that was not only unsanitary, but also stank of stale waste. It was an indulgence that could, according to popular belief, open the body up to disease and ailments. The grand halls and manicured gardens were often accompanied by less appealing sights and smells. The disposal of human waste through windows speaks volumes about the sanitation practices, or rather the lack thereof, in the 17th century. It was a solution that may have seemed practical in a time before modern plumbing, but it came at the cost of creating a living nightmare for the servants and the lower classes who inhabited the palace's lower levels. The prevailing medical wisdom of the time held that the skin acted as a protective barrier against these ills, and by removing dirt and dead skin, cells the body's natural oils and defensive properties were stripped away, leaving it vulnerable. Furthermore, the association of bathing with sexual activity and the biblical condemnation of bathing in the book of Leviticus contributed to the perception of baths as sinful. These beliefs led to a situation where bathing became almost a guilty pleasure. Noble women, despite living in a culture that celebrated opulence and luxury, would often go weeks, even months, without a bath. And one of the areas most affected by this lack of privacy was personal hygiene. How did they deal with the natural functions of the body in a time and place that valued appearances above all else? And what insights does this offer into the world of Versailles? Welcome to our channel, where we bring history to life so you can see it through new eyes. Before we dive into the world of royal bathrooms, make sure to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you're not only showing your support, but you're also ensuring you never miss any of our exciting episodes. So let's get started. The strictures of court life were such that a noble woman's day was regimented, her time carefully scheduled down to the minute. Bathing in the 17th century was considered more than just a necessity. Instead of traditional bathing, women at Versailles employed a different method of cleansing. Communal baths did exist in the palace, but they were far from the relaxing experience one might imagine. Toilets as we know them today were practically non-existent at Versailles. Contrary to popular imagination, Versailles was not a place of sparkling cleanliness. While the opulence and grandeur of Versailles have become synonymous with the era, the reality of the time was far from the sparkling image portrayed in many depictions. For the women of the French nobility, particularly those living in the opulent confines of Versailles, their hairstyle was more than just a fashion statement. It was a badge of status. These magnificent creations were not just assembled using hair. They were built upon a framework of linen, wire, and wood. However, these majestic and envy-inducing hairstyles came at a great cost. In a world where social standing was often decided by the finest of margins, these women were caught between a rock and a hard place. Wigs played a crucial role in the social hierarchy of the time. Versailles, with its strict protocols and emphasis on appearances, provided the perfect breeding ground for this peculiar predicament. One of the most striking aspects of the Palace of Versailles was its architectural brilliance. The palace's plumbing was rudimentary at best, and this had dire consequences for the kitchens where the food for the entire royal court was prepared. This unsanitary situation was not just a matter of aesthetics or momentary disgust. In a time before modern sanitation and food safety regulations, such contamination was not an isolated incident. The kitchens at Versailles were not just the heart of the palace's culinary operations, they were a microcosm of the era's challenges. Childbirth at Versailles was anything but a private affair. The protocol dictated that multiple attendants, including women, physicians, and even male courtiers, were present during the birth, ostensibly to ensure the safety of both mother and child. This invasion of privacy was not just a formality. The ordeal was further compounded by the lack of anesthesia. Versailles, with its grandeur and regimented protocols, provided the stage for this archaic and distressing practice. The lives of the women of Versailles were a study in contrasts. From the elaborate wigs that concealed painful infestations to the communal baths shared with men, these women's daily lives were a testament to the cost of appearances. So what does this tell us about the world of Versailles? If you've enjoyed this journey through the not-so-secret life of Versailles,